welcome here to the home of Yannis Felix champion and of course Ferrari's biggest fan, as we are now going to go and round off the first amazing half of this amazing 2026 FIA Formula 1 season with round 12, but what's really effectively only round 10 of the championship, the one and only Belgian Grand Prix held at this historic, legendary, iconic Spa-Francorchamps circuit. And we are very excited over here to do this race introduction, to show you the circuit, to talk about the race and to see how we can record our third victory of the season and really start pushing for the World Championships, either with Lewis Hamilton, possibly with Charles Leclerc, who has obviously started his account of these amazing Formula 1 Grand Prix victories that now he has 9 of here at the Spa-Francorchamps, exact 7 years ago, on one of the darkest moments definitely in the Formula 2 history, that he came through like a champion and collected a 2019 victory in the Belgian Grand Prix. So we will talk about that, because obviously this race, which will kind of conclude the first half of the season, because we will really probably, even though we don't know yet at the time of the recording of this video, only hold 22 out of the 24 races. So maybe the real half of the season will be after the next race, which is obviously held at the Hungaroring and fittingly for the summer break. But overall, we will talk about exactly how historic, how special this circuit is, how great Yannis Felix champion is, as well as Scuderia Ferrari at this track that used to be 14 kilometers long, but now even at half of the length, 7 kilometers long, it is still the longest track on the Formula 1 calendar. We will, of course, take a look at the history. Then we will talk about the drivers and the constructors championship. We will not be doing the Belgium sprint, of course, this year, because we've just done it in Great Britain, but because I'm also playing that concurrent 2025 season, you will actually see Belgium sprint for as part of the next race weekend. Amazing videos here at what I should really call the sunshine production of Yannis Felix champion and Ferrari's biggest fan. You will of course see it there, so I'm really looking forward to it, and also the Constructors Championship. We will take a look and examine it, and we will start with some news. So over here, let's get started. As you see, the Ferrari SM1000T 818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator, beautiful scarlet Ferrari red calendar in the 3D, obviously here dimensions, and of course the traditional 2D calendar, and with this great polo, which of course also features over here some of the sections that you can open up, for example, to collect some of the victories that we definitely hope we will be doing. There is apparently a big decision, with regards to, talking about the calendar for the next season, because it hasn't been finalized, but we do know that obviously Imola's already been dropped out, Zandvoort will drop out, and of course the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya will share this spot now with the Belgium Grand Prix. So we will see the race obviously this year and next year, but in 2028 the Belgium Grand Prix and Spa-Francorchamps, very sadly, is due to take the scheduled break, and they will be replaced by the race in Portugal, Portimao, obviously with Madrid already replacing Imola, and of course the Turkish the race will return from the Istanbul Park, but only for first couple of years. So we will see exactly what will happen there, but it's not really the big question mark, and especially the dates when the races will take place. The big question mark is how many sprint races will there be, because you can see, the season has started with the first 11 races, but really only 9, because we haven't raced in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, even though one of the races, probably Bahrain, because obviously that is a permanent circuit, unlike the temporary Jeddah Corniche circuit. It's possible that we could go to the Shakir International Circuit still, sometime in the latter half of the season. I personally hope it would be better if we do not do so, but you can probably see that the number of the sprint races will be increased to kind of compensate for the less racing that we had, but also heading forwards, because it is quite successful. You could see the highest ever attendance at the Formula 1 race, the British Grand Prix weekend, and of course the sprints kind of help with that. It's also exciting for the driver, but then of course it kind of stretches the weekend, because when you have free practice 1, free practice 2, free practice 3, if I can use these shiny golden Formula 1 Grand Prix winner trophies, like when we went, for example, to attend the Abu Dhabi race in 2015, we actually didn't go to the free practices, right? So that's one of the issues, right? You're selling usually the tickets for, 3 days, but usually hardly anybody will come, let's say on Fridays and Saturdays. People only come for qualifying. So that's one of the challenges that we always have. Why is that a challenge? Because of course, you want the people to enjoy the whole racing weekend, and it's better to do so with the sprints. But you're really risking a burnout when you have 24 races, 6 sprints, so 30 races. That is a rumored 34 races to be. So I'm actually quite surprised that F1 would like to go from 6 sprints all the way to 10 immediately, not go through 8, which is divisible by 24, where again you have to run the sprint championship. I really hope Formula One will definitely consider that. And of course, it would also be great to have kind of like, let's say if you have 6 sprint races, right? Every 4 seasons, like you could sign up all of the tracks and then run the kind of the championship like this way, and then have the proper sprint championship for the whole 4 years or 3 years. With 10, will be difficult to do, but it's getting very close to 12, which means that every other race would have a sprint weekend. We kind of have something similar in the MotoGP, obviously, being owned by the Liberty Media. So it's definitely possible that F1 will follow that lead. It is interesting for a driver when I'm having sprint weekends. I actually do enjoy it, because sometimes in free practice 3, if you or even free practice 2, if you meet all of the objectives, you kind of have nothing to do by just going round, fine-tuning the setup. I don't think it takes away much from the Grand Prix, but I think the current format works fine. It's just that you really have to create sprint championship like you have, for example, especially in European football. Obviously, we are in the middle of the FIFA Club World Cup, so it will be very interesting to see who will win the championship. Also happening on this weekend, so the Belgian Grand Prix might take a back seat, just like during the Olympics. Again, to a bigger sporting event, which for Formula One is only the FIFA World Cup, and of course the Olympics, which is the biggest one. So I do believe over here that the sprints, that will be interesting again if that happens. And again, the decision apparently is imminent. So far, no real driver moves, so that's a little bit of a surprise. I guess the new regulations and the later start of the season, when we didn't really get racing until late May, has meant that a lot of the teams are still considering how good the drivers are, who to keep, who to not. But there is maybe announcement with regards to the future of the 4-time champion, of course the Red Bull villain, who hopefully won't crash into us, as we will be racing actually in Great Britain over here, and the same weekend as the Belgian Grand Prix will take place. It will be interesting to see what happens there. The rumor is that Verstappen would go to McLaren. Who would he replace? The reigning world champion Norris? Probably not. Piastri, who would then go where? Red Bull, that would be quite interesting, right? Obviously with Hajar, doing very well, he's, kind of pretty much rubber stamp on for that seat. But it also means guys like Carlos Sainz, who left Scuderia Ferrari, might now be without the seat at the top team, because simply whoever would get kicked out of the McLaren will probably end up at Red Bull. So quite interesting over there. And for us as Scuderia Ferrari, there is rumors that both Leclerc and especially with Hamilton, that the performance clauses have been met, so we will stay with the same lineup to the 2027 season. So over here, that's pretty much about the news. And now let's take a look after obviously that great British Grand Prix and the victory by Charles Leclerc at this circuit that will host the penultimate round before the 2026 summer break. So let me turn around this Scuderia Red Retina iMac over here. Obviously, it looks absolutely fantastic over here. And yes, so everybody, welcome here. This is Spa-Francorchamps, right? So the longest circuit on the Formula One calendar. Looks great. And we will, of course, introduce it to you with the F125 and the new F126 hot lap. So you can see so many of the straight modes that there will be. So that will be quite interesting to see what happens. So the start-finish straight, it will be important, to qualify well, because you probably cannot make any positions, off the start unlike you could do, for example, at especially the previous Grand Prix at the Silverstone. Heading into La Source, it will be very important, to again, get through that corner. You can see how it tightens up over here, and it also, because the gravel is now here on the runoff, it means that you simply can't, attack the corner. If the guy squeezes you out, you just go out through the gravel. That's not an option anymore, unlike in the previous years. This run-up, Spa has done a great job to develop the facilities over here, because people just love to see the cars go through the Eau Rouge, that's the turns 2, 3, and 4, and then the Radillion over here, all the way to the Camel Straight, and again, that will be a great opportunity to see how the cars will tackle it, because most recently, it's always been a flat out, and actually it became an easy turn, but you can clearly see, it's blind corner, it's very exciting, but it's not the most challenging corner by far to take in a Formula 1 car, but of course it can lead to really great overtaking opportunities. However, it might actually be beneficial for you to lift off the throttle a little bit so that you can recharge a bit of a battery to have a bit more of a boost going down the main straight, where obviously you will then get a straight mode over here. Then going through the Lacombe over here, it will be important to ride the curbs over here, and actually usually you will run, as I will explain in a hot lap and the red hot lap, quite a low wing. So when we run quite a low wing over here, it means that just like Charles Leclerc crashed over here at the exit of the Lacombe chicane at the turn 7, the car will feel very light. So because the car will feel light, you gotta make sure you are careful here with the throttle, and then of course what will happen is that we have our run down over here to the Derivage, great chicane over here, or hairpin I should say, and again it will be important over here to go hard on the brakes and to kind of threaten the throttle, because that will be a great opportunity for you to recharge the battery. You will be again using lots of energy from La Source to Lacombe through that Camel Straight, then over here through the King and heading towards Pouhon. Here you actually get the straight mode zone, so there are more straight modes, which we haven't had before over here in this section, heading into Pouhon. So that will be very important, that wing stays closed, and that you get a lot of the downforce through what is actually, I would say, the most challenging corner of the Spa-Francorchamps. It is actually the Pouhon, where we always tackle it from 8-7 gear, or and you kept the foot planted, and you really have to get a good turn in so that you don't, for example, fall of the track limits, because if you are out over here on the exit of the turn, I crashed there in the spring of 2023, so you have to set up the car well. But if the car can ride the curbs well, that can actually give you advantage to run wide. So it's very important, again, to maximize the track. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how the cars will tackle this turn, because again, going full throttle might not be, the best solution over here. And then going through Malmedy, turns 12 and 13, that is a pretty decent turn over here, and then early turning into Stavelot, and then you will have a really long run over here. It is 7 kilometers long, and actually this section is pretty much the same, kind of like going from La Source here to the Lacombe, and we already tried, and you start losing, really, this is turn 16, but you can hardly feel it. Turn 17 is Blanchy mode. That actually could be great overtaking opportunity if you save some of the boost, but surprisingly the straight mode is not gonna be engaged over here up until you go here from Blanchy mode to the bus stop chicane. So that is quite interesting that F1 has picked that final straight mode, because obviously start finish straight will also have a straight mode over there, for such a short period of time, right? And that maybe can give the opportunity to the defending driver, to keep it steady into the bus stop chicane. But yeah, there will be a massive, it will be pretty much impossible to keep enough of the energy for the final section. That was actually already a bit of an issue in the 2025 season, believe it or not. So now we went from the 80-20 split to 50-50 split. It will be very interesting, and I think it will be a really cool race. But again, you lose huge amounts of lap time, because obviously it is pretty much impossible to recharge enough battery to again then go, for example, flat out through the Blanchy mode. But it's still a fantastic fantastic challenge and one that we are really great at Scuderia Ferrari. So yeah, the circuit made it onto the calendar in 1950, 44 laps, so that it gets us over the distance of 300 kilometers. And look at this. This is the Eau Rouge. My parents went there, track closest to obviously when I studied, you know, during my high school years. But you know, from the car, it doesn't really feel like that. But when you are standing there, you know, it is quite a hill. But you know, for the F1 car, I always like to actually, you know, deploy the battery in the middle of the Eau Rouge, and surprisingly the car can handle it. You know, the downforce is so good that you can simply then just accelerate over here, and that helps the top speed, right? Because obviously if you can get to the top speed quicker, you know, that is the best in terms of the lap time. So yeah, this is the iconic Eau Rouge, yay! And here, this is how well we've done. So we've won 18 times over here. Obviously, Michael Schumacher has 7 victories, 4 for Scuderia Ferrari over here. He's also gotten his first victory, and of course, I will be aiming to emulate that because I won here 3 times in 2010 when I actually denied Michael Schumacher his 8th victory. You know, in that amazing race, I finished 5 seconds ahead of him. You know, that was in my early years of the Formula 1 career. I won in 2016, 2016, and 2024, 2024. The weather can also be a factor, which obviously means that I haven't won here more times. 14 pole positions for Michael, only 1 for Scuderia Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc has also won here, and I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, we actually planted on the pole position, you know, on the accounts of how we mastered Silverstone. If we master, you know, over here, you know, the Spa-Francorchamps with the right setup and the right battery deployment, then we can be on pole position. And Leclerc looks like, you know, he has now turned the tide against Lewis Hamilton. 19 fastest laps, 52 podiums, so that means that we will pretty much, for sure, be on the podium. And that's actually the minimum target that we will have for this race. So why is that? So everybody, let's, of course, you know, take a look at it. So obviously this is our Belgium Spa-Francorchamps. The reason is because in the 2026-2026 season, Andrea Kimi Antonelli is leading with 179 points, and George Russell is exact race distance 25 points behind on 154 points. Lewis Hamilton though is on 147 points, so only that's 32 points behind. So again, if we win here, then Lewis will be only within a race win of leading the World Championship. So it is absolutely critical that, you know, we win the race, that we beat the Mercedes again, and if not, then of course, you know, we finish on the podium. Charles Leclerc is the final driver to go into 100 points on 108. He is now 39 points behind Lewis Hamilton. Nothing technically lost in that fight with Lewis for the championship, but you know, we will probably have to make that decision if Leclerc can't close the gap, you know, to simply let Lewis go for it. Then we have Lando Norris McLaren 97 points. 6 is then Oscar Piastri McLaren 82 points. 7 Max Verstappen Red Bull 76 points. 8 Isaac Hadjar Red Bull 52 points. You know, first time in a while that you see that second Red Bull car picking up lots of points. And then we have a 9th, Pierre Gasly Alpine 42 points. 10, of course, is then Liam Lawson Racing Bulls 39 points. 11, Arvid Lindblad, the only true rookie on the Formula 1 calendar, doing a great job there with 20 points. Oliver Beckman is 12 for Haas on 18 points. 13, Franco Colapinto, maybe will be celebrating there the 4th title for Argentina, because he's Argentinian driving for Alpine on 18 points. 14 is then Gabriel Bortoleto Audi, who's now on 6 points and jumped. 15, Carlos Sainz Williams 6 points. 16, Alexander Albon Williams 5 points. 17, Esteban Ocon, who is on 3 points, and 18, Fernando Alonso Aston Martin, 1 point. Ocon obviously driving for Haas. Nico Hülkenberg, 19 for Audi, 0 points. On the accounts of how well Audi did in Great Britain, you could definitely, you know, bet on them. And 20th is then Valtteri Bottas Cadillac, 0 points. 21st, Sergio Perez Cadillac, 0 points. 22nd, Lance Stroll Cadillac, 0. Aston Martin, 0 points. And Aston Martin, yeah, that's a huge disappointment this season. season. So for the Constructors' Championship in the 2026-2026 season, Mercedes-Benz is leading with a nice score of 333 points, and we are obviously right up there with 235 points. So being 98 points behind is not great. Obviously, it was costly, the fact that we didn't, get ahead of Russell over there, or I should say 255 points. I'm missing the 20 points over there. Yeah, but you can see, just that switch, right? The fact that Russell, when the race finished under the safety car in Great Britain, that he finished ahead of Hamilton, that's a 6-point swing. Otherwise, we could have been on 258 points and Mercedes would have 330 points. And you can see then we would be, technically speaking, only 81 points behind. As the current table stands, it is 88 points, quite a lot more than 2 race victories. McLaren is third on 179 points, 4 Red Bull 128 points, 5th Alpine 60 points, only mere point ahead of Racing Bulls who are on 59.6, 7 Haas 21 points, 8 Williams 11 points, but you gotta be looking behind because Audi is coming 9th, 6 points and doing pretty well, especially with Bortoleto. Once Hülkenberg starts getting points, Williams will really have to prove, that they have what it takes to stay 8th. 10 is then Aston Martin 1 point, 11 Cadillac, the newcomers on 0 points and very likely to stay there. So this was the Constructors' Championship, the Drivers' Championship, and of course we will be racing over here at the iconic Spa-Francorchamps circuit, obviously here in Belgium. So hope you enjoyed over here this great race introduction. And now to round it off, we can discuss obviously how Jan the Smiling Sun champion has done here. So of course I will be actually chasing only my 3rd pole position. That is quite surprising. I've gotten 2 poles over here because in 2023 I've gotten the sprint pole and the sprint fastest lap, but finished obviously at the back of the field because I spun out in a heavy rain. But that also meant that obviously I lost then the chance to start on a pole position for the Grand Prix proper when I only finished 8th. But yeah, again I also have gotten only 2 fastest laps, so I will be aiming for the 3rd but the 4th victory. And of course in terms of the podiums, I've also only gotten 3 podiums because I finished 6th and 8th respectively in the 2017, 2017 and 2023. But again, the weather forecast should be brilliant, for the Grand Prix proper, but there will still be some rain, so we will see how the whole weekend will pan out. But I will definitely be aiming to win at this track. I've been dominating and equaled the Michael Schumacher's record of 13 out of the wins out of the first 14 races, obviously, of the season. And of course, I want to be going on for more as I'm chasing that elusive Formula 1 World Championship. And for me, it's also going to be a sprint Grand Prix weekend. We're leading by 19 points, so the goal is to create a distance of at least 1 race victory between me and the Red Bull villain Verstappen, who maybe will be a McLaren orange villain, still staying in the Dutch orange. That's very important because obviously we've kind of underperformed, of course, especially in Monaco, but bit in Imola, and had some unlucky races, and we want to get over here, to the winning ways. So yeah, it will be interesting, but of course, because you will be seeing that concurrent 2025-2025 season. So here it's quite interesting because we are heading, obviously we won in Austria, but it wasn't really a sprint weekend over there. So yeah, the lead of the championship, obviously over here, it will be quite interesting to see what happens. The British Grand Prix in 2025-2025 wasn't really a sprint, so that will be quite interesting. We're leading the championship by 11 points, so we want to again increase it to, as I said, at least a race victory, or at least close to it. But definitely we want to be we want to win the back-to-back Grand Prix for the first time since Brazil, Las Vegas last year. So wish me good luck with that. I will be enjoying it, especially in this fantastic, super comfortable new fashion. And now all I can say is, guys, the Spa-Francorchamps is waiting. But before we go to Spa to enjoy the victories with the shiny Formula 1 Grand Prix winner trophies, let's race because